Can you explain who you are in the show and what your character does?
Sure. I play a character called KJ Harper, who is a Jersey City prosecutor. And we meet her in the first episode, and she's clearly not doing very well and is in a really bad place professionally and personally, and ends up with this case landing on her lap because she's in the right place at the right time, and it really is the making of her, and she thinks it's very straightforward in the beginning, but spends the entire season trying to figure out the truth of what happened.
Okay, you said the character KJ has a lot of personal stuff going on in the show. What is wrong with her character? What are her issues?
I think she's got a lot of issues. I think she's given up in a lot of ways. I think things haven't gone well for her at work. I think she's been unlucky in love. I think she's had problems with her family, with her father, most specifically, and she turns to drink and she turns to casual sex to try and fill that void. And I mean, I think as most people who have ever tried that in life, it doesn't work. So she's in this spiral of sort of self-loathing and self-medication that just goes round and round in circles.
And you're working with Vina, who produced shows like The Killing, also a Netflix show. What was it like working with her and her writing team and having them develop a character as complex as KJ?
Right. It was great, and it was interesting in a way that a lot of things aren't nowadays, which is a shame. I think that there's a lot of TV shows and films where characters, and especially female characters, and especially ethnic minority characters, just stereotypes and are there to service another character. Female characters are often there to service a male character, and they don't really have much of an arc themselves or don't really exist in their own right. And to have a character that was written by a woman and have a team of writers where there were so many women and so many people from ethnic minorities just meant that not only my character, but all of them in general were more complex and more nuanced and more interesting than I see in a lot of other TV shows.
So coming from London, how did Vina prepare you to tell a racially charged American story?
I had to do a lot of work. There's the technical side of, you know, learning about what it is to be a prosecutor and how that works. And I spent time with Jersey City prosecutors and New York DAs and Jersey City Police, NYPD. I went to the courthouse downtown in New York. I went to the courthouse in Jersey City and really had to try and get to grips with that system because it's very different to the legal system in the UK. And on the other side of things, I guess kind of just socially, how things are here and how people relate to each other is very different, and the racial landscape is very different to how it is at home, and I had to try and get to grips with that and understand really, or try to understand in the most basic way that I could, what it is to be an African American woman, because the experience from what I can see of African Americans is very different to the experience of black people in England.
How so?
It's just an ever-present part of society, races in the US, I think. And I'm from London, so you know my experience will be different from people living in more rural parts of England, for example. But I do think there is something very different here in how people relate to each other and how people see race, and I think it's so woven into the fabric of how society works here that everyone sees through a racial lens, and that's subconsciously or otherwise, and people notice it all the time and they think in terms of it, and they have entrenched stereotypes that inform how they interact with people and how they judge people before they've even gotten to know them. And I'm just not used to that. I'm not used to seeing race first, and I feel like there are a lot of people who see race first here.
At its core, the show, characters such as yours and others are very developed, so much so that you empathize with these characters. And they all have their own moral code and compass that they're all following it, you know, different things kind of drive them. How important is that, do you think, that Vina and the writers kind of develop these characters like that to, like you said, give them more complexity,
right,
and bring the show kind of more to reality,
right,
to life?
I think it makes it a more interesting show, first of all, but I also think it helps people engage with it more and have more empathy for the situation and also pay more attention to what's happening. Because I think that we all have a tendency, especially nowadays, where people consume news in tiny sound bites, or they read a headline, or they read the beginning of a story, and they've already cast the characters, and they've already written the dialogue, and they've written the story, because they think, well, that person's a villain, and that person's a hero, and that person's a victim, and that person's a superhero, and I know how this is going to go, and I know what background these people are from. And I think when you have characters that are more real and more complex, and also when we're inside a story with them, the way that we are in 7 seconds, because the audience knows more than any of the characters do, which I think is very interesting, and not being able to project what we think onto a character because we're right there with them telling us what they think most of the time, I think hopefully will mean that people, I guess, pay more attention to what's going on and judge the situation more on the facts rather than what they think should be happening.
There's that dynamic between the headlines of the news and the real story that's going on with the people that are involved. And like you said, we tend to, certainly in America, compartmentalize empathy based on what network we watch and who's telling the story. We kind of automatically size up the situation.
Yeah.
So I guess the hope is that a show such as this can kind of like dig up the layers that are going on.
And maybe encourage people to move away from consuming the news through the filter that they've chosen, or the filter that's been built, because we all do it. It's a natural thing. You have your own political views and your own social views and your own moral views, and you do it, and the Facebook algorithm does it, and you build this world that is attuned to what you think, and that is how you consume things, through a lens. And with 7 seconds and being with the characters in the moments where they make decisions, there is no lens, because that person is telling you how they feel in that moment. So there isn't, Fox News or BBC News or CNN telling you, well, this person was probably like this and this person probably did that. And it's a much more healthy way to try and understand what's happening around us and to shake us. Obviously we all think that our viewpoint is right. I think that I would say I'm on the liberal side of things, and in the UK I would say that I'm a Labour voter, and obviously I think that I'm right and the way that I vote is correct and the news I consume tells things the right way, but I also have to understand that that has a provenance and that comes from outside of me, and it's a bias that I should try and factor into the things that I consume.
A black teenager was left out in the cold to die.
No one cares about Brenton Butler. His life does not factor into the equation of this city.
I hope people watch it, and I hope that they enjoy it, and I hope that they talk about it. I think we're trying to address a conversation that needs to be had in America right now, and I think it's healthy to feel something, whatever that emotion is, about what you see and discuss it with other people.
Can you say your character name again in your American accent?
I hate you so much. Of course I can. KJ Harper.
KJ Harper.
There you go. That was for free. Next one I'll charge for.
That was awesome.